All right, let's dive in. Have you ever wondered how someone goes from being, well, kind of impulsive and rough around the edges to becoming a foundational leader? Today, we're going to unpack just that by looking at the story of Peter. The rugged fisherman who was told he'd become the very rock a global movement would be built on. It's an absolutely incredible story of mentorship, failure, and ultimately transformation.
And really, everything we're about to talk about, it all builds up to this one single staggering promise. This wasn't just Jesus giving him a pat on the back. It was a prophecy. Just try to imagine that for a second. Being told that the entire future of a world-changing movement rests on your shoulders. The stakes, they just couldn't be any higher. So that's the big question, right? How does an ordinary, flawed guy, a fisherman no less, get a commission like that? What's the process that turns a regular person into the rock they were destined to be? How do you forge that kind of potential from so many contradictions? Let's jump in and find out.
So Act 1, the call. It all starts with one single life-altering decision. Okay, so before he was Peter the Rock, you gotta remember he was just Simon the Fisherman. Think of him as the raw material here. You know the type, super passionate, always the first to speak his mind, fiercely loyal, but also, definitely prone to messing up. He wasn't some scholar or a priest. He was just a working guy who made this absolutely radical choice to drop his nets, leave everything behind, and follow this call to something way, way bigger. And that brings us to Act 2, the apprenticeship. Now, this wasn't your average classroom, not even close. Peter was invited into a really exclusive, super intensive mentorship. So out of all his followers, Jesus chose just 3, Peter, James, and John, for what was basically a front row seat to history. Peter saw things that would change anyone. He witnessed the ultimate power over death when a little girl was raised. He saw this unbelievable glimpse of divine glory at the Transfiguration. And he was right there, face to face with the raw reality of human suffering in Gethsemane. This wasn't just about watching from the sidelines. This was intense, deeply personal stuff. Okay, now for Act 3, the crucible. And that's exactly what this was, a period of intense trials and mind-blowing revelations, all designed to literally forge his character, like steel in a fire. The first part of this whole forging process, it was exposure to just raw, undeniable power. Peter needed to see with his own 2 eyes that the laws of nature, everything he thought he knew, could be bent by a higher authority. And this stuff wasn't happening at a distance. It was deeply personal. He saw his own mother-in-law healed in an instant. He was one of the guys handing out food that just kept multiplying to feed thousands of people. And then the craziest one of all, he's the one who actually stepped out of the boat in the middle of a storm to walk on water. And for a second there, his faith was so powerful that he literally defied gravity. He did the impossible just because he was told, come. It was this perfect flash, this glimpse of the incredible potential that Jesus saw in him. But as you probably know, that's not quite the whole story, is it? Yeah, because for every single lesson in divine power, there was an equally powerful lesson in human weakness. This whole training, it wasn't about puffing Peter up and making him feel invincible. It was the exact opposite. It was about forcing him to face that massive gap between a divine plan and his own very human, very flawed point of view. And this has got to be one of the most shocking moments in the entire story. Think about the whiplash. Just moments after Peter has this incredible revelation and correctly says who Jesus is, he then tries to correct Jesus's plan. The response he gets is swift and it is severe. It was a crucial lesson, right? Leadership here wasn't about trying to fit God's plan into your own expectations. It was about totally submitting to it. So this really lays bare the core conflict inside Peter, doesn't it? On one hand, you've got this incredible, passionate zeal. He's always the first to jump in, the first to speak up. But on the other hand, that exact same passion is what leads to his fear and his pride. He walks on water, then he sinks. He declares who Jesus is, then he tries to correct him. His greatest strengths and his greatest weaknesses were literally 2 sides of the same coin. So the big question is, how do you harness all that good, fiery zeal while toning down the pride? Well, it happens with a radical lesson in leadership, one that completely flipped everything Peter thought he knew upside down. And it all started with something as simple as a bowl of water and a towel. You can really see this whole thing play out in 3 clear steps. First, you get Peter's pride kicking in. He just resists. No way, you are never washing my feet.
He just can't wrap his head around a leader doing a servant's job. Then comes the revelation. Jesus explains, look, this isn't optional. This humility, it's at the very core of what we're doing. And then finally, you see total submission. Peter's zeal is still there, but now it's redirected. He goes from never to, okay, then wash my hands and my head too. He gets it. He finally gets it.
Which brings us to Act 4, the commission. All of it, the incredible miracles, the embarrassing failures, all those hard-won lessons, it was all leading right here to this one final pivotal moment.
And here's what it all comes down to. Peter wasn't chosen because he was flawless. Far from it. He was chosen because he was teachable. He messed up, he stumbled, he failed. But he always, always got back up. And it was that resilience, that deep-down loyalty, that made him the perfect guy for the huge responsibility that was about to be dropped on his shoulders. And so we come full circle, right back to that foundational promise we started with. But it sounds different now, doesn't it? After everything we've seen, we can really feel the weight behind those words. This isn't just a simple name change from Simon to Peter, which means rock. It's a declaration of what this transformed, forged, and humbled man has now become. And with that new name, he was also given the keys of the kingdom. Now, obviously, we're not talking about a literal set of house keys here. This was a powerful symbol. It represented divine authority and this immense spiritual responsibility. He was basically being trusted to unlock the doors of this new spiritual reality for the rest of the world. So, when you boil it all down, Peter's commission wasn't some kind of trophy for being the best student in the class. It was a prophecy, a statement about who he was becoming through this whole messy process of failing and being reshaped. His leadership wasn't built on a foundation of being perfect, but on a foundation of being profoundly transformed. And that leaves us with a really compelling question to think about. Peter's story kind of challenges our whole modern idea of what makes a great leader. Do we look for people with a perfect, flawless track record? Or is real, true leadership actually forged in the fire of failure and in the humility to learn from it? His journey really seems to suggest that our greatest potential isn't found in never falling down, but in how we choose to get back up.